Steven Soderbergh, Lucy Liu, David Koepp do a haunted house horror movie from the perspective of a ghost. That is produced by Neon. This has me written all over it, right? Like, I love Soderbergh. He's so prolific. He has so many bangers. Erin Brockovich, the Ocean's movies, Unsane, Grey's Anatomy, one of my favorite TV shows ever, The Nick. The man just makes banger after banger after banger. Like, I love his output. And he teams up with my childhood and still adult crush, Lucy Liu. And on top of that, they add the writer that brought us Jurassic Park, Death Becomes Her, Spider-Man, Carlito's Way, Mission Impossible, like Stir of Echoes, like just to name a few of this man's writing credits. They chuck David Koepp in the mix. And this movie is it's just perfectly set up to be like a SpookieKnights favorite. And guys, like, I fucking hated this movie. I hated it. Like, you have to understand how much it hurts me to say that, because I love basically everyone who was involved in this movie. But goddamn, this movie is so boring, and the dialogue is so bad that I got secondhand embarrassment when I was watching it. Like, it had me wincing. And like, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of critics that are just going to eat this shit up, because it is a highly experimental film. It's shot from a cool perspective, you know, being shot from the perspective of a ghost. But man, you got to do more than shoot it in a cool way to make me love something like this. This is a big miss for me, and that fucking hurts me to say, because god damn, I love everyone involved and I want this to be good. I even still want this to do well just because I love Soderbergh, but this was a toughie. So this is what would have happened if I was in the pitch meeting for Presence. So get this, Presence follows a family moving into a new house. The thing is, this house, it's got an entity in it. Not just that though, like there is some family tension and a mysterious event has happened and it's traumatized the younger daughter. Yeah, no, I thought you'd be in. And we're going to have the teenage dialogue written by your technologically challenged great uncle. Okay, no, don't worry, I'll get you back on side. The ghost is also pretty shy and it doesn't really do anything. It just sort of like, ooh, like just observes really. It doesn't actually really have too much effect on. Okay, hear me out then. What if we introduce some really interesting, morally grey characters? Cool. And we won't tell you what they did though. Like, we'll just sort of be like, these guys, they may be morally bankrupt, but we're not actually going to show you what they did. And that's the end of the movie. Yeah, what do you think? Do you like it? Sorry, I forgot to say the most important thing. This is going to be a highly experimental film. I'll have you know that it does. That is how the pitch meeting for Presence felt to me. Honestly, like, I, if it was anyone but David Soderbergh, I'd be like, fuck this film completely. But he's got so much goodwill with me. I'm like, all right, man, you get a miss every now and again. But god damn, like, maybe I'm in the minority here, but that's what I got from Presence. Like, I did not like it. As always, I like to start off with the positives. Chris Sullivan and Lucy Liu take a fucking bow. Their acting in this is phenomenal, right? Like, Lucy Liu plays this like type A corpo stage mum, and her whole performance makes you both pissed off at her but intrigued by her. She's a really interesting character, highly unlikable but very interesting. Chris Sullivan plays like Dad of the Year. I fucking love his performance in this. The man is so sweet, and he's trying to his best to remind the mum that, like, hey, you've got two kids, you have to love them equally, or you should love them equally. He's open, he's honest with his kids, he's trying to make good people. That is, you can tell that's what he's trying to do. And there are multiple scenes where this poor fucker is hanging on by a thread. He's hanging on by a thread, and before he gathers himself up, he picks all his shit up, and he just tries to like get on with it. And god damn it, if every dad hasn't had to do that at least once. It's fucking Chris Sullivan's performance in this is so good. The camera work is also pretty great. Like, that is the whole premise of the movie, basically. It is spectacular. I will give it that. Apparently, Soderbergh had to wear these like weird, they're almost like slipper-like muffled, like shoes to muffle his steps, which made him the real-life stand-in for the entity. Like, he just sort of followed the cast around, like peering out of closets and ominously closing doors and like breathing on them from centimeters away. And that stuff works pretty well for the most part. It does get a bit cheesy in points. This film is also really emotional in parts, and those parts were its peaks, but there was too few of them that were good, and there was too many flaws for me to like this movie just because of that. Like, maybe I would have liked this more if it was just a straight family drama with no horror, but then I probably wouldn't have gone in to see it, because we've seen really good family dramas all the time. I mean, A Real Pain I just went and saw, and that's a fucking brilliant family drama. So I don't think without the horror injection, this film would have got eyes on it and people would have loved it as much. I think people are giving it a bit of slack because of that, and I just don't think it's enough. Major thing that baffles me about the love this movie is getting from critics is that there are multiple times where the dialogue written for the daughter, the son, and the friend of the son are fucking horrible. Like, wincingly horrible. It's real like, how do you do, fellow kids vibes from it. And it just doesn't matter how good you are as an actor. If you've been given really shitty, awkward teen dialogue, you can't do much with it. This is a sad miss from David Koepp, because he's a brilliant writer, but this is just bad. Like, the vibe of this film is so dark and serious and sad and like melancholy, but then someone will say stuff like this is almost word for word a line from the movie. Like, I don't know if you're prepared to hear this, guys, but your brother, he has a mean streak and he's going to play a prank on a girl at school. Like, it is that fucking level. Like, it feels, it just completely, it's like it's in a different film. It's so weird. It's so bad. It made me want to claw my eyes out. And as I alluded to in the intro, the entity in this movie also doesn't really have any teeth. Like, the entity is pretty much just a fairly neutral observer for like 85% of the movie. And that doesn't mean its presence isn't felt. It is. It's felt by characters, but it's almost so minor that characters don't know it's there. Like, this isn't Paranormal Activity or anything where shit's fucking flying across a room, or there's none of that. Like, I kept waiting for this thing to do anything of substance, and like waiting for a big shock or a big moment of violence or something, and it never really comes. And now this could have been an issue with the marketing of this movie, because it was like, this movie marketing, it leaned into it being a horror. Like, some of the marketing said like terrifying film, scariest film of all time, which I always take with a grain of salt. But if you're saying that, I expect there to be at least a fucking scene where they try to do horror. They don't really do that. There's maybe one scene that could pass as a horror scene, but the rest of it's sort of just like a slice of life movie. It's just jump cuts of the daughter chilling in her room and what she gets up to, or the parents having a really heated discussion, which are the stronger parts of this movie. But if you are going to do that, then get your marketing and the audience expectations in line, because I think people are going to... You've marketed this directly to horror fans, and I think people are going to go in expecting like a fucking spooky horror, and this isn't that at all. If you love experimental movies like Skinamarink, you might get something out of this, maybe. But then again, I think marketing this directly at horror fans is doing this film a disservice, unfortunately. I only really recommend watching this movie if you like experimental horrors. Like I said, Skinamarink, Ennis Men, that sort of thing. Probably like polarizing horrors even is probably how I would describe it. This will be a polarizing horror. If you are horror averse or have a horror averse partner or loved one, this is like 98% family drama and 2% horror adjacent. So you could watch this with them. It works as a family drama, not a strong one, but there are parts of it that are okay. If you want to hear an absolutely scathing dad line, there is a line in this that the dad says to his son that I just, mwah, like, I hope my son is never like the son in this movie, but if he is, I'm fucking whipping this line out on him. It's so good. Really, if you just want to see a good dad role model in a horror movie, this is it. I don't recommend watching this if you want a horror movie, like a straight up horror movie. This is pretty fucking low on the horror. Like, if the scale of horror goes from 1 to 10, this is a 1.5. If you hate art house horror, this is like lots of critics in Soho and fucking LA are gonna probably love this. I could see it. If you just like, you know, a bit of gore, a bit of violence, a bit of something that'll get your heart rate up, this is not that. If you need to like characters to like a movie, there's probably really only 2 characters to like in this movie, and even then, out of the 2, one of them's pretty much neutral and the other one's good. So make of that what you will. This is a hard recommend for me. Now, if you love this movie and you want another experimental POV horror that actually gets the genre and leans into it really heavily, I highly recommend In a Violent Nature. It's a 2024 Canadian slasher film directed by Chris Nash. It basically follows the shot of the killer. So like, it's like almost video game style. If you watch Friday the 13th and wanted to follow Jason, that is what this movie is. That's the elevator pitch. It is this weirdly serene and relaxing movie that is speckled with these moments of intense gore. And I mean, like, some of the best kills in a slasher movie of all time. And unlike Presence, I think that movie really leans into what makes slashers great. It understands it and it subverts it, making it really interesting. Where Presence sort of takes the POV ghost concept and moves away from the horror into the family genre, which makes it a weaker movie as far as I'm concerned. But In a Violent Nature, it fucking gets slashers. Chris Nash obviously likes slashers, and that is a really good POV horror from the perspective of a slasher. Now, Presence is an experimental film, so I thought, why not get fucking weird with the recommendations? If you want to see how weirdly unsettling and horrifying a house shot from the POV of someone or something inhabiting that house can be, like if you want to see Presence done as hard into the atmospheric horror as you can possibly go, I highly recommend the YouTube short film My House Walkthrough. It came out in 2016 and it's basically just 12 minutes of a person or entity, you're not really sure, walking around their house with subtitles narrating their thoughts. There is no dialogue, but it just shows you how unsettling, unreliable architecture or a POV tour of a house can be, right? Like it's a fucking creepy little, it's a nasty, creepy, gross little number. And it only goes for 12 minutes and it's free on YouTube. You can watch it right now. But I wish Presence took some of the scary atmospheric horror that My House Walkthrough had and injected it in there, because it could have been really good. It could have, like, if you'd melded those, it could have been fucking a beautiful film. But it's really weird. Like, My House Walkthrough is really weird, but it is a masterclass in how scary Presence could have been. And plus, I always like to try and get more eyes on it. It's it's 12 minutes, it's free on YouTube. What the fuck are you waiting for? But like, yeah, that's it. Let me know if you have seen this movie. Because I saw an early screening of this movie, so I don't know what... I've only seen like what the festival critics thought of it, which is apparently really high. I'm interested to see what the general public think of this movie. I think it's going to be one of those ones where critics love it and audiences hate it. But we'll see. Yay or nay, tell me in the comments. This might be this year's Skinamarink. It's going to be highly polarizing, I would imagine. I thought The Substance last year would be highly polarizing. I was in the wrong with that. Everyone seemed to fucking love The Substance, which is fine. I get that more than I get this one, for sure. As always, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, whatever. Like, it all helps, honestly, guys. If you want to, like, any of the interaction helps this channel. I appreciate the hell out of you guys for doing it. As always, hope to see you next week for another review. Peace.